Welcome to the Asian Connection Mortgage Podcast, where we connect Asian Canadians together to talk about anything related to real estate, mortgages, and finances, based out of Vancouver. Our host is John Lee, mortgage broker with Arise Mortgage. Grab a bubble tea and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to another episode of the Asian Connection Mortgage Podcast. My name is John Lee, and I have a special guest today. I have Hayson Chan in the studio. How's it going, Hayson?
Hey, John. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you for coming on. This is, I believe, your second time on here, and you're the first repeated guest. So I hope you feel very honored about that.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, you are a repeated guest because I really appreciated our chat last time. But for those who haven't heard our first episode, perhaps you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and what your profession is.
My name is Hayson Chan, and I work in the accounting industry. Obviously, I'm a CPA. Been in the industry for like 15 years. So I work in both industry, not-for-profit, and now private practice. Of course, right now we're super busy with all the bookkeeping, year-end tax return. It's tax season, right? And then I believe we're going to talk about the BC budget a little bit, right?
Yes, we are. So I want you to treat me like someone who has no knowledge. And honestly, I actually don't have too much knowledge about this. What happened was that I believe last week, correct me if I'm wrong, I read a news article. It was a big news for our province, not for the whole Canada. It's just for BC. And they announced the BC budget. And it was a big news because honestly, I haven't heard much from the provincial government. We've been hearing a lot from the federal, Mark Carney, and then how we're doing against the US and the trade wars and things like that, but not so much with the provincial level. And I believe there's been a lot of mixed responses for it. But before we dive in, perhaps maybe you can just share with us the announcement, give us an overview of the budget and what are some things that we need to be more aware of from this budget.
Right. Because the news headline, it all talks about the federal, our Prime Minister Mark Carney go hustle for more, contracts, all around the world, basically, the trade war, tariff and everything. Yes, you're right. The BC released the budget for 2026 is a lot of deficit. We're talking about like 13.3 billion debt.
Wow.
And
okay.
You divide by 5.2 million population in BC is a lot of money per person or per household, right? Mm-hmm. And a few highlights is that our industry as CPA practicing accounting professions, we are very shocked about and very surprising during Chinese New Year because as of October 1st, 2026, if the budget pass, if everything pass, then we will have to charge PST. This also applied to some real estate professionals, right? Such as, commercial real estate commission, some strata fee, property management fee, and also engineer, right? And, as you know that the real estate, it's not even close to recovering. It's taking its time. A lot of the real estate professionals that I know, they lost a lot of revenue, and it's very tough for the industry and for these hardworking professionals and their families, right? And for our industry, one thing that we don't want to do is to increase the bill without adding the value to the client's business and your personal life. The 7% PST that we have to include in the billing is not claimable, right? So that's purely 7% of business expense. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the GST, the business who is going to be GST registrant, they can claim the input tax credit. So let's say, for example, let's say you're a GST registrant, so that you collect, X amount of dollar of GST. You act as the agent of the CRA, the government, right? But when you go spend money, related to your business, anything, let's say you purchase, some supplies, some gift for your clients, as an accountant, we can claim the GST input tax credit for you. So let's say if you collect $5,000 and then you expenses, $3,000. So the difference can be $2,000 back to the CRA. So you only pay the difference. But when it comes to the 7% PST, you can only claim like $20, $30 of like PST commission, which is very minimal.
Okay.
And
So
7% is going to be your expense, your cost of running business increased by 7%.
okay. So let's back up a little bit. I think this is a little bit passionate for you because of the changes in the bill, but we just want to continue on with the overall highlights first, and then we'll dive in. You did mention about BC with the deficit, and what did you say again? How much trillion is it?
I think 13.3 billion
Oh,
deficit.
okay, not trillion, billion. Okay. And so I'm assuming this is a pretty big amount. Um, would you know just off your head, like, is this debt growing or is it the same as last time? Like what's the situation now versus the previous announcement?
I think it's getting like the situation is getting worse,
Okay.
and the BC government is trying to minimize or decrease the debt amount. And I get that, right? Like the government, they have to spend money to provide a lot of public service, right?
Hmm.
Now they're increasing all the taxes, right? So the the upcoming tax season, probably they're going to increase the personal income tax rate from 5.06% to
Hmm.
5.6%. And then they're going to
Okay.
be freezing some of the non-refundable tax credit at the BC level. So usually the tax credit will offset the tax payable. So what it
Mhm.
means is that usually that credit will be adjusted, in terms of inflation. So the credit will be like rising, right, increasing.
Mhm.
So that helps a little bit. By freezing that, is just, in other words, it's just increasing the tax again, personal, right?
Right.
So yeah, of course, we talk about some exemption in terms of professional fees, engineer, our fees and all that. They're going to take that away, so we have to charge like 12% now, not
Right.
5%. These are
Okay.
some of the highlights, right?
So BC is running into a huge deficit. Now, what do you think brought us here? Like, what assumptions were made where the government was willing to spend so much, and hoping that there was some sort of return or something, or maybe like they're maybe perhaps hoping to stimulate the economy? I'm not sure. Like, how do we get to this place?
I think I think fundamentally, like not just BC, but in Canada, right? Like all kinds of this public sector uh, organization, there's a fundamental problem, right? I used to work for like mid-sized firm, and then they send me to do some bookkeeping jobs, some accounting support to not-for-profit organization, First Nation entity, government, different positions, right? I do audit and all that. One of the big things that I want to mention is that when it comes to applying for a budget, like for next year, next fiscal year, there's going to be the actual number and there's going to be budget number, right? And then you compare the two numbers, right? If you don't spend all the money that you asked for last fiscal year, and then it's very difficult for you to apply for a bigger budget for an upcoming fiscal year. So to me, this is huge because each and every single government entity, they have the motivation to overspend, right? Because none of these, CEO or directors of the organization wants to have a budget cut. They want to expand, right? And they will find all the reasons to spend all the money, right? And fundamentally, that's a big problem. And the second, which a lot of people talk in the social media, even on the news, is the accountability, right? And even though there's going to be auditors report, the auditor will come in and they will do the due diligence, they will do the testing and everything. But their job and also the engagement does not include that if the expenses are reasonable, right? Like they can be spending $15 for a glass of orange juice, right?
Mhm.
Is in compliance if someone approve it, right? If someone steal the money and not report, that's a big thing, right? But
Right.
when it comes to like a average Joe, like a normal British, Colombians, they would say, hey, like why would you spend like $15 on a glass of orange juice, right? It should be like $3 to $5, right? So I think the accountability and also the actual and budget comparison, uh, that would bring us to like a huge deficit, and it's never enough. But don't get me wrong, John. I mean, the government, it's tough, right, to make all the stakeholders happy as a government. We get that, right? And most of the people are very reasonable in terms of, yeah, I make money, I hustle, I pay some taxes, that provide a lot of public service, yes. But I think we need to have a broader vision by bringing in outside investor into BC. Even though we are in some sort of recession right now, all the major cities, people are having a hard time, but a lot of people still want to bring the money and the families and the professionals and the skills to BC because we are one of the most beautiful West Coast city, right? So people love being here, right? So why don't we bring money from the outside so that the piece of pie gets bigger and then everybody, get a slide and everybody will have a better life, right?
So I think from the headlines, it seems like the budget is not so great. But in the end, we are dealing with politicians. So somehow they are able to highlight some of the good things from the budget. So there's got to be some winners from this budget. Can you share with me like who or which group of people in BC would benefit from this budget?
I would say some public sector programs, they have to make sure that this program keeps running. I would say the healthcare system funding. Uh, I know there's a lot of different opinions that, how our healthcare system is, deteriorating, the long wait line, and then people are dying in the emergency room and all that. But, that's a really eye-catching headline. But I mean, like the healthcare system spent a lot of money, right?
Right.
They want to make sure that it keeps running. And of course, like the small, medium-sized businesses, professional service firm, and a lot of people, like every individual have to pay more. You just need to pay more, right?
Right. And then the losers, the people who got negatively impacted. I think you touched on this a little bit, so let's dive in more. So what I heard from you was that there's some changes for the PST exemption. There's also some changes for the tax rate for the income tax as well. So because of the huge deficit, what I am hearing is that the government needs to generate more revenue, and through that, they need to get it from taxes. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So more personal taxes and higher living costs, because when it comes to our profession, the one thing that we are very grateful during COVID, if you remember, March and April, basically whole world kind of locked down, right?
Mm.
And but after COVID, we're super busy, right? Because people need us to apply all these government benefits and all that. And the dentists are very busy because all these essential surveys, you have to pay it, right? So we're grateful, but at the same time that increasing the PST is going to be increasing the fixed costs for running business and for lots of individuals who hire accountants to prepare a tax return.
Yeah. And then, so when you mentioned about higher income tax rates, that scares me a little bit, because that affects everyone. But from previous, it's usually like, oh, the higher income earners, because that seems to be like the NDP platform, where it's like, let's receive more from the people who are higher income earners, so then they can support the low income. So with this adjustment in the income tax, what type of people are most affected?
I think the lower income individuals are affected at this time, right?
Oh, okay.
The
Okay.
increase
Which
from
tax
5 point,
bracket is
yeah,
being
the
adjusted?
lowest, right? The
The
lowest
lowest.
tax bracket
Oh,
is
okay.
5.06 to 5.6%, right?
From which band, which tier do you know?
The lowest tax bracket.
The lowest, which is
Yeah,
up to like 15,000? What is it?
yeah, something like that, like 40, like just give me 1 second, let me check something. Is yeah, around 50,000, 49 to
Around,
7.
okay. So that's pretty much majority,
Yeah,
like it
everybody
affects everyone,
would
right?
have to
Because
pay.
if you're working, you will make some money, and then that's gonna get taxed. Okay, very interesting.
And
So
a middle class family, I got some stats online.
yeah,
It's based on estimation, right?
right.
Some people make a chat. So basically, for middle class family, for income tax increase is approximately like 300 to 700 per year, right?
Mm,
And
hmm.
for small businesses, it's going to be around 9,000 to 12,000 per year. Like if you run a small business, right?
Right.
Because everything adds up, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, the developers, right? Which a lot of small, medium-sized developers, they have a cash flow challenges, right?
Yeah.
Their cost for engineering, accounting, auditing, and everything is going to be 21,000 more per 1 million project. So it's going to be around another 3 to 5% increase
Okay.
in
So
costs.
with all these announcements and all this budget, where do you see BC in, like, say, 6 to 12 months? Like after like generating all this money, do you think the taxes that's being collected will just simply just to pay debt, or do you actually see some sort of improvement in the province?
I think uh, short-term wise, the paper is going to look better in the government books because, again, like if we use the analogy for the pizza slide, right? The government get a bigger pie now, and
Right.
people like you and I get a smaller cut, smaller slice. In terms of revenue, yes, they generate more revenue and tax money, tax dollar for the government,
Mhm.
which is funding all these programs, right? But in the long run, I think this is going to hurt our economy
Mhm.
because when it comes to a healthy economy, you want people to spend money because consumer see hope in the future, and then they are comfortable spending, right? Now people are like not living, but they're like surviving in BC. Not to mention that we're in a recession and the housing market kind of is someone is pressing the stop button, right? And then all the real estate professionals say, "Hey, what's next?" Right? There's no transaction, right?
Mhm.
So it's very difficult for a lot of hardworking middle class and professionals. And if you look at all these, fancy headlines, say, "Hey, I sell my house and I bring my family back to where I came from, which is Asian countries or down the States." There's so many growing opportunity in the States, right? Regardless if you like, the American lifestyle compared to Canadian lifestyle. But, some people is going to move to, cities like, Edmonton and Calgary, right?
Mhm.
So there's a trend that the people are living because BC is just too expensive to stay. Not to mention the, high housing price and affordability and all that, right? If you look at all the essentials, which we need food, we need clothing, we need shelter, and we need to, transport, right? Travel. So all these essential, I call that the fixed cost for living in like a city, is very high. And average, income in Canada is going to be like 50 to, I would say, 60, 70,000. per person. Like a family, we're talking about like 150,000, right? But of course, that's average number. But if you look at the cost of living, people don't have any money left, right? So if you keep increasing all these, fixed costs of living, either people will not spend any money, right? And that will hurt all the small to medium-sized business owner. And some of them will be leaving. If they're single, they got out from college, they're young, they're ready, their ambitions. They say, hey, I don't, I don't want to stay in here and build my families. And then they take everything, leaving Canada, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you mentioned was real estate softening. And I agree because I'm also in the industry. And I also recall that one of the biggest revenue generators for the government is the property transfer tax. And with less transactions happening, their revenue is down. And I can understand how the budget is now heavily in debt. You're an accountant. You also serve a lot of different clients as well. And you don't need to mention specific no names or and all that because of privacy reasons, but just in general, like what type of sectors do you see that are struggling? We did mention people in real estate, but are there other sectors that you see that are struggling that may not be highlighted in the news?
Yeah. So my portfolio include a lot of medical professionals.
Mhm.
They're dentists, they're surgeons, chiropractor, RMT, physiotherapists, and a lot of real estate professionals, right? Such as yourself, mortgage broker, real estate agent, people work in trades, construction workers and all that,
Yeah.
and personal surveys, right?
Okay.
People doing like eyebrow, eyelashes, facial, and all that. Uh, I, the people or the businesses who struggle a lot, obviously the real estate professionals,
Right.
and also people who run a shop, like a retail store, because of high fixed costs,
Hmm.
high labor costs and inventory, price is high, it's hard for them to turn over the inventory and make profit, right? Restaurant like food and beverage, right? Lots of restaurants are closing down. Some of your favorite restaurant, around the corner, they might be gone tomorrow, and that's very sad. It's very difficult to, build up a up running business, make profit. And now if you see all these restaurants are closing, it's not just that the individual restaurant, they don't know how to run a business, right? That's a structural problem in here. And also IT. So IT professionals, some of them, they lose jobs because of the tariff and the uncertainty around the global economy, right? Of course, the news headlines going to say AI is going to take over the world, and people say that every computer or AI related industry is going to be doing really well. Yes and no. It really depends. So we got some you know professionals who work in AI. They could be app developer. They could be software engineering, computer science guy. Some of them they're losing jobs. So
Hmm.
it really depends.
Got it. Now we're going to start wrapping up now, and I think I know what the answer is, but I'll still ask you. If I were to ask you to rate the budget on a scale of 1 to 10,
Yeah,
uh, what, and 10 being like
really good, right?
very, very good, where would you rate this?
Is there negative score?
Wow, is that
I would
bad?
say I would say three to four,
Around
right?
3 or 4? Okay.
Yeah, if the economy is booming and
Mhm.
if people are making money, right, investing and all that, I think it is fair to, increase some taxes, right? Because people have more disposable income. But
Mhm.
now, because of the global politics, the world is not very stable,
Right.
right? And not to mention about the economy, right? And in Canada, we have to hustle to find, more wealth. We have to attract more money and capital, into the economy so
Mhm.
that we can keep growing. And everybody have more job opportunity, to grow. If you look at all these numbers, that's very depressing because people lining up in the food bank for food, young university graduates, they don't have jobs, but they owe the government a lot of money. Like we got a lot of problems that we have to fix, right? And I get that we need money, right? But
So,
why don't we find other source to bring in more money?
yeah, you mentioned about no, there are other solutions. So if you were the finance minister and you have a chance to sit down with our premier, what would be the suggestions or advice that you would give so that our province can give a better scorecard for our budget next time?
I think the accountability of running the government is something that British Columbia wants to see. I think most people are fair as long as you do your job. People will be okay paying the taxes, just like people like you and I, right? Like if we make a mistake, we let the client know, we refund the fees and all that. Like we try to make things working, right? So I think the whole fundamental system when it comes to the actual versus budget, these has to change, right? I think we need to set up some sort of KPI and some metrics to measure the government performance and productivity, right? Not just, oh, I overspend, next fiscal year I ask for a bigger budget. And then internally, I would, if it's up to me, I would freeze all the taxes for, 2 to 3 years to bring confidence to people that they want to stay here and develop the business, build the families, and spend money. So if you see the money is, spending in the economy, everybody benefits. And then, externally bring in investor and say, hey, we can take away some foreign tax, and you even give you some foreign tax credit if you create 10 jobs, right? So in this case, we are building up the economy of BC, and we're connecting, because we're in West Coast cities, we can connect with a lot of Asian countries, and there are still a lot of Asian entrepreneurs and business owners. They love the lifestyle, North American lifestyle, especially when Vancouver, right? Like British Columbia, they want to come, bring the families. The kids is going to go to school, they're going to buy a house, they're going to start a business. If you make things easier for these people, they will come, and we'll have more business owner create jobs.
So those are great suggestions, and I agree with you. Now, do you think most people think that will happen or
Most
may
people
happen?
kind of lost faith in
Like last week. Okay,
the
that's actually
world.
my very last question would be like, this seems quite sad because Vancouver is a place that both you and I we both love. Do you feel that because of all this things happening, people are actually leaving um, British Columbia or even the country? What do you see with your clients and people that who you know?
I think for my clientele, because most of them are professionals, that their income is quite stable. Some of their income decreased by like 10 to 15% last year, um, which is really good already, right? But keep in mind, John, if your income or your revenue of your company uh, are stabilized, it also means that your lifestyle is, declining because things are getting more expensive because of inflation.
Right.
Uh, I don't think like a wave of people is going to be leaving BC. A lot of people still, build their families and are alive in here for the last 30 years already. But people with choices, right, they will start to think, right? Especially people who are, young and competent. Uh, that's also part of the reason that we don't have enough nurses and doctors, right? Because they're going to the States, they're going to another country to develop their families, right? And that is also hurting our economy and our own people, right? So I still believe that there's going to be a lot of people like you and I. We love Vancouver, we love British Columbia, but it has to be, somehow, we can manage all the expenses, living expenses, right? So yeah, I do see people leaving. I got some friends in Edmonton and Calgary. They are seeing more and more people moving from British Columbia to Alberta because of cheaper housing price, bigger space, right? So Yeah, so that's going to be the way. And then if we keep on, heading towards this direction, I think everybody will suffer. Right.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your insights. I'm going to be putting your contact information in the show notes, but perhaps you can give like your 20 or 30-second pitch. Tell us more what you do and what you specialize in. So then for those who fit in your clientele portfolio, they'll be able to reach out to you and receive some of your consultation.
Okay, thank you, John. I'm Hayson Chan. I'm a CPA. So what we do every day is to, work for hardworking professionals and, business owner. We do, run the, business accounting side of things. We're the professional CFO. We do a lot of bookkeeping, tax return, and tax planning as well for the families and for the business. In BC, 99% of businesses are small to medium size. So, these are all hardworking families and hardworking, entrepreneurs, and we always ready to support them.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And hopefully, no, things will get better. And perhaps in the next budget, we can be a little bit more optimistic.
Yes, thank you, John. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider giving us a review and subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Asian Connection Mortgage Podcast.